Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 88 of Makai-World Reviews. I am of course the Tony Makai, a master of minds and of men. After the fan reviews of last month, which was a lot of fun, and I absolutely recommend anyone who wants some reviews done by me, of course, to head on over to my Patreon. But we're moving on from that. This month I'm going to be spending the 5 weeks of August looking at the first 5 movies from the Star Trek franchise. I am nominally a Star Trek fan, a lot more than Star Wars, but I've not seen most of these movies in years, so I'm excited to see how they held up. Today we are obviously going to be looking at Star Trek, the motion picture, the first one. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and let's get to it. Star Trek, the motion picture, directed by Robert Weiss, a dependable director known for things like The Day the Earth Stood Still, West Side Story, The Haunting, and The Sound of Music. A man who seems like he can do any genre of film, a legend in the movie industry. Written by Harold Livingston, a novelist who seemingly has no reason to be writing this movie, and it will show. He's one of the founding members of the Israeli Air Force. Alright. Starring Old Bill Shatner. I'm going to be picking different actors for every movie, so I'm not just talking about Bill here. Slightly controversial, mostly a punchline, and not as good as Picard. Bill has done a lot in his career, from bad movies, to bad sitcoms, to bad novels, to bad video games, and albums with Henry Rollins, Iggy Pop, and Joe Walsh. Joining him on his journey is Leonard Nimoy, far more respectable of the two main cast members, the ballad of Bilbo Baggins notwithstanding. Leonard brought the character of Spock into the zeitgeist where he remains to this day, but he is also an accomplished television actor in his own right, and of course, famous voiceover work due to just having an incredible set of pipes. I often say his line from The Simpsons, "Surprise me," in the same tone, without remember, I am aping Mr. Nimoy. Release date for this movie was December 7th, 1979, and what came out the same week? Killer Fish. It's described as an Italian, French, Brazilian horror movie, really throwing all those cultures under the bus there, huh? Lee Majors fights some evil piranha. That's the movie, and it's worse than almost any of the piranha movies. MST3K did this in season 12, so that should indicate what level that film is on. And Porridge, also known as Doing Time, a film based on a show that wasn't popular in America, only running a season, so didn't do well here. Was apparently very popular in the UK. There you have it. Was Porridge, the show, any good? Let me know down below. Moving on to the plot. Now, I said I am a Star Trek fan, but not by any means or stretch of the imagination a huge one. So I'm not going to get into all the lore and what episode this or that references, unless I really feel it's relevant to my review. This should be something more anyone can walk into and watch without a lore dump as a kind of standalone film. In the same token, I am not going to explain things that should be obvious in context as well. So after an exceptionally long opening, and this will be a reoccurring theme, drawn out scenes, it's like about 4 minutes before we see anything. A big energy force destroys some Klingon ship. Starfleet finds out about this, also getting the Klingons' reports before they die, find this dangerous energy is headed towards Earth. Elsewhere, Spock decides to forego his personal training to deal with this issue. We'll see him later. Moving over to Starfleet, and for the next half an hour we are treated, and I use that term loosely, to bureaucratic issues involving Admiral James T. Kirk regaining command of the Enterprise, usurping young upstart Willard Decker, who he does keep on his crew, as he's very, very competent. We meet up with old favorites, Uhura, Sulu, Chekhov, Scotty, and a grizzled 1970s Bones, who's also McCoy, who frankly needed more to do, as well as newcomer Ilya, who has had a previous relationship with Decker. Eventually they are off, but due to Kirk not knowing this redesigned Enterprise as well as he thinks he does, he runs into conflict with Decker, though they seem to come to some agreement with each other. Spock shows up to help out, kind of implying this is his destiny. They reach the cloud, and it's an energy unlike anything they've encountered before. It attacks them, kidnapping Ilya, killing her and replacing her with a sexier robot version of herself, but she still holds the original's memories, such as her longing for Decker. She says she is part of the Vajir here to record what's going on, and that the creator they are looking for is on Earth. Decker and robot Ilya bond as Spock makes his way down to the ship in the cloud, having a 2001 A Space Odyssey experience along the way. He reports back that he found no answers from the ship, only questions such as, is there nothing more? A small team of the usual suspects head down to talk to Vizier, and they find the Voyager 5 spacecraft, modified by an alien race to become sentient, and the creator they're looking for is man. So, of course, Decker, since he isn't in any of the other films, stays behind with his robot girlfriend, and the Enterprise is off to do more stuff. Alright, that was the plot, and I think for this it needs a pro-cons. Pros, the visuals. Now, this is going to be literally impossible to not compare to the visuals of, 2001: A Space Odyssey, because they ape 2001 a lot. Like, there are tons of shots that are essentially 2001, just not quite as good. But I can't even say that's negative, as to this day we still have sci-fi movies that borrow heavily from Odyssey. It was excessive in a few shots, but overall, it felt more like a fun homage than a negative thing. That being said, the 70s aesthetic was a lot of fun. The jumpsuits, that kind of flowing sleeves, Bones in particular had this beard and big necklace that dates it in kind of a really fun way. Though it seems like Starfleet doesn't regulate cups for their jumpsuits, as you got one or two groin shots, one with a guy fixing a light or something, and it's just like, bam, penis. This was a good-looking film. The effects were nice. Some slightly creative, some incredibly tacky, but overall it's Star Trek. You kind of want that little bit of tacky with your sci-fi. Though there are moments where they are showing windows on the space station and everything looks stretched out and distorted. Was just not good post-production there, buddy. The cast, new and old, were all welcome. It was really nice to see all the old cast reunite, even if it did take quite a long time. And, most of them didn't really get a ton to do or say. Uhura, Chekhov, and Sulu, the usual suspects of being left behind, were here. And it was kind of sad because it was nice to see them, but Scotty, Kirk, and Bones... Spock got all the time to shine in their own fashion. Bones, Spock, and Kirk having a meeting together was probably the highlight of the film for me. The new additions, Deckard and Ilia, were not bad. I have nothing good to say about Stephen Collins, who plays Decker. Obviously, he's a reprehensible monster. But I do try to avoid personal issues when talking about an actor or director, even if it's difficult. And he was pretty good here. If not, well, once Ilia was introduced, we kind of saw what way his character was going to go. She was kind of cool-looking, bald head, but she was more interesting as a person than a robot, and boy, did they try to sexualize her as a robot, which is funny because she makes note of her celibacy as a person, but she just has, a shirt, some tights, and high heels on as a robot. She was okay, a one-note character, but it was the originals we all came to see. The story was different. Now, I know it was taken from another of a previous Star Trek story, namely The Changeling, which was in Season 2, Episode 3 of the original series, and it certainly has that flavor. Star Trek has always been known for its kind of middle ground when it comes to science fiction action. The goal isn't to hunt and destroy, it's to explore, to understand, to try to find something that enhances mankind. And if conflict is necessary, then yes, so be it. But it has very much different to the usual sci-fi and its aversion to conflict as a response to problems. This will lessen in time for the franchise, but here it is a perfect example of them trying to do anything but fight. The use of man-made vessel, the fictional Voyager 6, obviously an extension of our own space program, was interesting, though they never really explored the alien race that gave it sentience. Would have liked to hear more about that. But yeah, the movie kept the integrity of the original show intact. On to the cons. Now, after all the praise I heap on it, there's one huge Klingon-sized issue that I cannot excuse this movie. It's boring. Inexcusably so. This movie is 132 minutes, 2 hours and 12 minutes, and it could have shaved 45 minutes off, sincerely. From the opening title to actually seeing a ship, it's 4 minutes. From there is a scene where Kirk and Scotty launch a small probe to go to the Enterprise. And I'm going to start from where they first start talking about going to the Enterprise, which was minutes earlier. I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start from when their pod actually takes off to when it docks the Enterprise. It's 5 minutes. Moving slowly through space, vaguely looking at the Enterprise, which on the outside has not changed that much. And it goes on like this. There's the endless 4-5 minute burns all through the movie. Most of them are dialogue free. Look, we have a budget. We watched 2001. It's nice to look at, but it becomes excessive. We have to stop what is not a particularly engrossing plot to just look at space for 4 minutes, then back to conversation. Then we're getting ready to do something. Then we look at space. And you might think, oh, it's just 4 minutes, but it's 4 minutes every couple of minutes after that. Well, yeah, it's just a slog. I genuinely was bored a lot by this film. If it had a better editor to it that actually could have trimmed some of this fat, I think it would have been a better film. Honestly, besides that, I don't see a ton of other gripes. The soundtrack is good. I mean, it's sort of your standard Star Trek fare, but more than you would be used to if you were just a fan of the show. It wasn't an action-packed romp, so it didn't have big, bombastic music score going for it, but it had these nice, well-done, well-crafted tracks to help us spend the minutes we were staring at space sort of pass nicer because we had something nice to listen to. Overall, this certainly didn't set the world on fire and is not considered to be one of the better films in the Trek franchise, but it was a bold, ambitious thing for the show that hadn't been on the air for 10 years to try to accomplish, and there's a lot to like if you are a Star Trek fan. Unfortunately, it needed a lot more fine-tuning and oversight before this went to theaters, and ends up being a movie that I wouldn't recommend even for Star Trek fans, as it breaks no new ground, tells you nothing you don't already know, and rehashes things you've seen. For non-fans, I think you'll mostly be bored, and honestly, the next film will reintroduce you to all of these characters in a much better way. Not to mention, you could easily wiki who any of these people are if you don't know, as it's not like this film really introduces but 3 or 4 of the cast anyways. Well, that was Star Trek The Motion Picture, a film that's tried its damnedest, but I gotta say, didn't exactly thrill me. What is your favorite non-Star Trek Leonard Nimoy appearance? Let me know down below. Check out my Patreon where you can support this channel for as little as $1. And on Instagram under Demon Peaks for daily Twin Peaks memes. Don't forget my podcast, the Dark Peaks Podcast. And of course, subscribe and come back next week. We continue Star Trek Month with The Wrath of Khan. This has been the Tony Makai, Master of Minds and of Men. Thank you very much, and goodbye.